Hey everyone, this is the Iran update for Friday, February 27th. Let's get right to it. So, the big news out of Israel today is that Huckabee said to tell embassy staffers, if you want to leave Israel, do so today. And in fact, shortly after this, we got news that the State Department has issued an official warning telling everyone, telling everyone to leave. So the State Department authorizes departure from Israel. On February 27th, 2026, the Department of State authorized the departure of non-emergency U.S. government personnel and family members of U.S. government personnel from Mission Israel due to safety risks. In response to security incidents and without advance notice, the U.S. Embassy may further restrict or prohibit U.S. government employees and their family members from traveling to certain areas of Israel, the Old City of Jerusalem, the West Bank. Persons may wish to consider leaving Israel while commercial flights are available. Okay, so they're encouraging their staff to leave. Now, think about that. With everything going on over the last few weeks, they did not say this yet, but they said it today. This is just a couple of hours ago. At the same time, we see that refueling aircraft, American refueling aircraft are coming into Israel. 6 more came in yesterday. KC-46 tankers bound for Ben Gurion Airport amid wider U.S. military buildup. So that continues the massive amount of supplies. And the world's largest aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, arrived on the shores of Israel yesterday. Okay, here you go. That's the largest aircraft carrier in the world. No official announcement has been made by the U.S. military. The media report noted that the arrival of the aircraft carrier came after 20 U.S. refueling aircraft landed in Israel on Thursday night. Okay, I mentioned 6 before. That was what was reported in the Turkish media, but it's actually here it says that there were 20 refueling aircraft. And we also have a report in Yisrael Hayom, the Israeli newspaper, very well-sourced paper, that Trump to meet senior team Friday, that's today, on Iran strike options. That, of course, comes a day after these negotiations in Geneva that did not really seem to bridge the gaps between the two sides. So we see things are heating up. Let's sum up what we've seen so far. State Department instructs staff that now's the time to leave while commercial flights are available. Huckabee tells staff today is the day to leave. Today is the day that Trump is set to meet with his senior advisors, according to Yisrael Hayom. And meanwhile, we see massive amounts of American assets arriving in Israel, these fueling tankers coming in, the Gerald Ford, the largest aircraft carrier in the world, docking in Israel, all happening today in this 24-hour period. And meanwhile, we see this report: Iranian Kurdish opposition groups unify to topple regime, but vow not to use Iraq as a launching pad. Very interesting. Several Iranian Kurdish political parties based in Iraq have formed a new coalition to challenge Iran's Islamic Republic. They emphasize they will not use Iraqi territory for attacks against Iran and express strong skepticism about Reza Pahlavi as a viable alternative to the current regime. 5 Iranian Kurdish opposition groups have joined forces under the banner of the Coalition of Political Forces in Iranian Kurdistan, among them the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, the Kurdistan Freedom Party, and the Party for Free Life of Kurdistan. Okay, so you have all these different groups. It almost reminds me of the Monty Python movie, Life of Brian, where you have the different, the People's Front of Judea and the Judean People's Front, but anyway, you have these different Kurdish groups that are all getting together. They're all chomping at the bit for the Iranian regime to fall. Now, I also want to clarify something. In a video I made yesterday about the opposition in Iran, I mentioned MEK and this assassination attempt, and people misunderstood it. I read the comments. Many people on this channel watching this misunderstood it and thought that I was saying something positive about the MEK or saying something in support. They're actually a very problematic group and could actually destabilize the situation should the regime fall. I'm going to do a separate video in the coming days on all the various Iranian opposition groups so that we understand the lay of the land. And I'll clarify that then. In any event, here we're talking about on that Iraq-Iran border where we have these Kurdish groups that really want their own kind of independence. Although we should know that the Iranian Kurdish groups, again, Kurds in Iran, also kind of view themselves as Iranian nationals. And they want to have their own independent self-rule as Iranian Kurds. And that's why you see it's an alliance of Iranian Kurdish groups. The Kurdistan region of Iraq has long hosted camps and bases for several Iranian Kurdish factions, many of which have been targeted by cross-border strikes from Tehran. The timing of the alliance has prompted debate among Iraqi Kurds, with some warning that it could expose the region to renewed Iranian military action. They're worried about Iran attacking the Kurdish regions in Iraq. We are not waiting for the US or other people. The Kurdish movement has been struggling for legitimate rights for the past 80 years. Mohammad Nazif Kadiri, a member of the PDKI executive committee, told the New Arab when asked whether the announcement was premature, given that Washington has not formally adopted a policy of regime change in Tehran. So meaning they seem to be jumping the gun on regime change. The alliance is a political, national, and patriotic one for defending human rights, freedom, democracy, and peaceful coexistence for Iran's components. You see, they see themselves as a component of Iran, but they want their own self-rule. Thus, we hope the US and Europe will support it because they have also suffered from the Islamic regime's terrorism for decades. Regarding relations with other Iranian opposition figures, including Reza Pahlavi, that's the eldest son of the last Shah of Iran, Kadiri stated that the Kurdish parties maintain contact with various opposition groups, but have serious reservations about the exiled prince's political vision. So far, the son of the Shah has no clear and public political plan as per the other nations in Iran. Thus, from what we hear and read of what is said on his behalf, he is in fact worse than the current Islamic regime. Secondly, the Shah's regime was a dictatorship against Kurds, and now Pahlavi's agenda does not include an optimistic view for the Iranian nation and for real democracy and coexistence. Within hours of the announcement, the Ministry of Interior of the Kurdistan Regional Government issued a statement reaffirming that the Iraqi Kurdistan region will not allow any party to use its territory as a base to target neighboring countries. Let me explain what's happening here. The Iranian Kurdish groups are getting ready to, eat at the carcass of the Iranian regime as it falls, or aid in its falling. They want to take advantage of the fall of the Iranian regime to assert their independence in the Kurdish region in northern Iran. They are now located in exile over the border. They're in Iraq. The Iraqi Kurds don't want them using Iraq as a launching pad because they're worried about Iranian retaliation against them. So they're distancing themselves from the Iranian Kurds. Now, this is a problem. The Kurds, going back a century or more, have never been able to get along with each other, and it's been their undoing. This is why there is no Kurdistan. When the Ottoman Empire was first being broken up after World War I, the whole reason the Kurds were cut out of the deal and didn't get a Kurdistan is because they couldn't agree on anything, and they couldn't decide who was representing them and what they wanted, and therefore the British and French and some American diplomats who were carving up the Ottoman Empire there at Sykes-Picot Agreement and the San Remo Conference, they just didn't pay much attention to the Kurdish needs because the Kurds could not get their act together and unify. So it's interesting to see that the Kurds are still not really getting along so well. The Iran-backed Iraqi militia Kataib Hezbollah warned Kurdish authorities on Monday against joining any potential military action against Iran. You see also there, the Iraqi Hezbollah is also warning the Kurds in Iraq from getting Iraq involved in anything with Iran, joining military action against Iran. No one wants the Iranians to retaliate on Iraqi soil. So that's what you have here. So this is a very interesting developing situation, something worth watching as one of the side plots in this whole story. Now, as for Iranian media on WANA, I check this every day. This is the English translation of Iranian regime media. So what does it say on their front page? Is another round of talks ahead or repeat of the June war? And then they have this piece here where they remind everyone that in June, when Israel attacked on June 13th, it was a day before there was supposed to be a sixth round of talks. And Therefore, even though there's supposed to be more rounds of talks, this could be a repeat of what happened in the 12-day war. So that's what it says down here. Look, if we consider the experience of the negotiations that preceded the 12-day war, however, a repetition of that model cannot be ruled out. At that time, despite positive rhetoric about the atmosphere and progress of the talks, and even the scheduling of a sixth round, war broke out on the very night before the next round of negotiations was set to begin. Israel attacked on Thursday night, Friday morning, June 13th, and there was supposed to be that weekend, there was supposed to be the sixth round of talks. So they're saying, look, therefore, a positive assessment of the current talks and an agreement to continue discussions do not necessarily guarantee a final deal. This time as well, given the completion of U.S. military deployments in the region, the possibility of a repeat of the 12-day war scenario remains. In other words, what they're saying here, and that's how the piece kind of ends, okay? One more sentence at the end. The coming hours and days will be crucial, and we'll have a clearer path of what's going to happen. So this piece is fascinating because it's the Iranians simply signaling that they don't trust the Americans and that they are not going to be fooled if they get attacked. It's a very interesting play. They're basically saying, yes, we've agreed to have more talks and we hope there's more talks, but considering what happened in June, we're not going to be surprised if the Americans attack us. This is a way of preemptively saving face so that if the Americans actually attack, the Iranians can say, yeah, we weren't fooled, we weren't duped, you didn't have us fooled. It's an interesting play. Now, here's something that I noticed in the media that was fascinating, and this shows you, this is an interesting episode in information warfare, as it were. Check this out. So I noticed this on the WANA page that they, and this is from today, this is a news story from this morning, that the OIC, which is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, that's like the organization of all of the Muslim countries, that the OIC issued a statement that any use of force against Iran violates international law. And I found that really interesting because the OIC includes, a lot of countries that have pretty good relations or working relations, diplomatic relations with the United States. And it would kind of be saying, like wagging a finger at the US saying, if you attack Iran, you're going to be violating international law. I thought that was pretty bold for a statement to come out from the OIC about that yesterday, okay? Because this is what it says here. The Executive Committee of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, meeting at the level of foreign ministers in an extraordinary session, strongly condemned Israeli settlement expansion and annexation policies in the West Bank, and expressed deep concern over recent threats against the Islamic Republic of Iran. The committee stated that any recourse to force against a sovereign state constitutes a clear violation of international law. Okay? And then it goes, and then the rest of the article, next few paragraphs, all talk about Israel, West Bank, annexation, that whole issue. And then it says towards the bottom, attendees welcomed recent diplomatic efforts between Iran and the United States and expressed support for constructive steps aimed at reducing tensions. Yep. And then it goes back to, the countries that helped the negotiations with Israel and more about the West Bank to finish off. So I thought this was interesting, and I decided to search online for other reporting of this meeting. Because if there was a meeting of the OIC Executive Committee at the level of foreign ministers and they issued statements, I want to see how this was reported. So I went ahead and I Googled OIC foreign ministers, and then I clicked on news, which gives you the recent stories about any meeting of the OIC foreign ministers. And sure enough, Wafa and Q&A, this is a Qatari outlet. Here's Anadolu Ajansi, that's a Turkish state media, right? These are all like the Arab, these are all like the Muslim power medias, okay? So, and I clicked on them, or Arab News. Arab News is a Saudi outlet, right? At OIC meeting, Pakistan calls on world to halt Israel's annexation of West Bank. And there's a whole article about this OIC meeting. And I went to find on the page the word Iran, and it doesn't appear. There's no mention whatsoever of how the Iranians reported it, that there was a statement made saying that an attack on Iran violates international law. It doesn't appear in the piece. And then I went to the Turkish reporting. Turkey, Arab League, OIC, and 18 other countries condemn Israeli moves expanding control over West Bank. And again, I searched, let's go ahead and search for Iran. Iran. Nope, doesn't appear in the article even once. Nothing. Right, just on the sidebar, there's the word Iran appears in a link to a different article. Meaning, and I checked these other ones as well. Q&A and WAFA and all of them. So what you see here is that all of the other reporting of this OIC meeting makes zero mention, not even a sentence, mentioning any statement at all about attacks on Iran, about the Iran-US negotiations, or certainly not any declaration that a use of force against Iran violates international law. It was only reported in Iranian state media, which means one of two things. It means that Iranian state media is lying, and they never said this, or that it did come up at the meeting, that someone said it, or it was declared, but that all the other ones, all the other media, all the other state media of all the other Muslim countries didn't want to report it because they don't want to go on record as preemptively saying that the United States will be in violation of international law if they attack the Iranian regime. Anyway, I'm not sure exactly what to make of this. I'd love to hear from you. Put in the comments what you think of this, but I thought it was an interesting episode in reading media that you have this headline of a declaration made by this OIC meeting, and in none of the other reporting of this OIC meeting do we see any mention of this at all. All right, that'll be it for the Iran update for today. Please keep watching and sharing and liking and all that great stuff. And thank you for building this channel. It is growing. It's growing quickly, and that means that word is spreading. So thank you, and please keep spreading the word. And please, as always, check out everything we're doing at Israel 365 and at Israel 365 News YouTube channel. God bless.